It's May 10th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with tension between the U.S. and Israel over the latter's Rafah offensive. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has shrugged off U.S. warnings over Rafah, saying his country will fight with its fingernails. Washington draws the line that it's abandoning Israel. Celebrating Victory Day, Russian leader Vladimir Putin renewed his nuclear threats to the West and said that his country's nuclear forces are always on alert. President Yoon addressed the nation in a rare press conference on Thursday as he enters his third year in office today. Included in his new vision are the launch of a new ministry to tackle the country's low birth rate and making people's livelihoods more stable and fruitful. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains stubborn for proceeding with operations in Gaza. The U.S. continues to caution that an attack on Rafah could weaken Israel's position. 신세벽 starts us off.
In a video message on Thursday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israelis were ready to fight with their fingernails, pushing back against the U.S. warning that it would halt weapons support for a planned operation in Gaza.
If necessary, we will fight with our fingernails. But we have much more than fingernails, and with that same strength of spirit, with God's help, together we will win.
Chief Israeli military spokesperson Daniel Hagari also confirmed that there was sufficient ammunition to carry out all planned military operations.
The army has munitions for the missions it has planned, and for the missions in Rafah too, we have what we need.
Defense Minister Yoav Gallant also expressed a firm commitment to the Rafah operation, stating the goal of achieving security would not be given up.
The state of Israel cannot be subdued. We will stand strong. We will achieve our goals. We will hit Hamas, we will hit Hezbollah, and we will achieve security.
As of Thursday, the Israeli military reported that 150,000 civilians have evacuated from eastern Rafah. They added that during the operation, at least 10 Hamas underground tunnels were discovered and 50 Hamas militants were killed. Meanwhile, the White House, while stating that the decision ultimately rests with Israel, maintained pressure, arguing that an attack on Rafah would only undermine Israel's position.
An enduring defeat on Hamas certainly remains the Israeli goal, and we share that goal with them. Smashing into Rafah, in his view, will not advance that objective.
This came amid reports that both Israeli and Hamas delegations have exited ceasefire negotiations in Cairo. To that, Washington said it was assessing Hamas' response to a proposed ceasefire and hostage release deal, but did not disclose any details of what was agreed. 신세벽, Arirang News.
Russia celebrated its Victory Day on Thursday. The leader, Vladimir Putin, said the country will do everything to prevent a global clash, but warned that its nuclear forces are always on alert. 이승자 has more.
Victory Day has long been a special day for Russia, as it commemorates the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany in 1945. To mark the day on Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin held his Victory Day speech at Red Square in Moscow. There, he stressed that Russia will do all it can to prevent a global clash, but added that his country will not sit idly by if threatened, as its nuclear forces are always in combat readiness.
Russia will do everything to prevent a global conflict, but at the same time, we will not allow anyone to threaten us. Our strategic forces are always in combat readiness.
While the Russian leader has used nuclear threats throughout the more than 2 years of the Ukraine war, his rhetoric in the past year has become increasingly belligerent. Last year, Putin pulled out of a nuclear test ban treaty and a key arms reduction agreement with the U.S. Earlier this week, he ordered his military to conduct nuclear drills near Ukraine, stoking fears that he could use tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Thursday's Victory Day parade showcased rows of Russian military equipment. However, it was notably scaled back compared to previous years, as many resources have been mobilized for the Ukraine front. 이승재, Arirang News.
Today, May 10th, marks the two-year anniversary of the Yoon administration. President Yoon on Thursday reflected on his past 2 years while laying out his vision for the next 3. Our Kim Do-yeon tells us more.
The very first message from President Yoon as the public tuned in on Thursday to his first press conference in 21 months was that he was sorry for coming up short in improving people's lives over the past 2 years. And with the decision to face the media coming after he vowed to enhance communication following the ruling People Power Party's losses in the general election, he called for cooperation at the opposition-led National Assembly.
국민 여러분, 정부가 민생을 위해 일을 더 잘하려면 국회의 협력이 반드시 필요합니다. 앞으로 여야 정당과 소통을 늘리고 민생 분야 협업도 더욱 강화하겠습니다. 국회에도 당부 말씀을 드립니다. 정쟁을 멈추고 민생을 위해 정부와 여야가 함께 일하라는 것이 민심이라고 생각합니다.
He answered the 2 most anticipated questions himself during the Q&A session that followed, but without a change in stance that his aides had previously reflected. But for the first time, President Yoon apologized for what he called his wife's unwise actions, referring to her accepting a luxury bag back in 2022, but he refrained from commenting about the recently opened investigation by the prosecution, saying any comments could be seen as influencing a fair investigation. Regarding the death of a young Marine who was swept away by flood water during a search and rescue mission following a flood last year, and allegations of the government interfering with an investigation into the incident, he hinted at vetoing the special probe bill passed by the Assembly, at least for now.
지금 이렇게 진행되는 것을 잘 지켜보고 아마 모든 절차가 마무리되면 또 국민 여러분께 수사 당국에서 아마 상세하게 수사 경과와 또 결과를 잘 설명을 할 것인데 그걸 보고 만약에 국민들께서 이거는 봐주기 의혹이 있다, 납득이 안 된다라고 하시면은 그때는 제가 특검하자고 먼저 주장을 하겠습니다.
There was also a surprising announcement as he explained his next 3 years in office. He said he's seeking to create a new ministry to respond to the urgent issue of South Korea's low birth rate, with significant administrative power, or in his terms, aggressive policies, unlike now, when only consultative groups have been formed for this.
저출생 대응 기획부 장관이 사회부총리를 맡도록 해서 교육, 노동, 복지를 아우르는 정책을 수립하고 단순히 복지 정책 차원을 넘어 국가 아젠다가 되도록 하겠습니다.
As for medical reform, with the doctors' collective action against the government plan to raise the medical school enrollment quota to tackle the nation's need for more doctors, he reiterated that the administration will push through while calling on doctors to come up with a combined opinion on the current process. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Also highlighted in his address was the direction of Seoul's foreign diplomacy. That includes tightening the South Korea-U.S. alliance and handling Russia-North Korea ties. Our senior presidential correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
President Yoon said he is confident South Korea's alliance with the United States will stay solid, amid concerns that a possible return of former President Donald Trump would undermine bilateral security cooperation. This came at a press conference held to mark 2 years since he took office. Asked about Trump's recent remarks on South Korea's share of defense costs to keep American troops in the country, hinting at their possible withdrawal if Seoul doesn't increase its contribution, Yoon said he wouldn't speculate on the upcoming US election, but said he is confident that the solid alliance between Korea and the US will not change. Defense sharing costs during the past Trump administration had been a major source of contention, and Seoul already agreed to hike its contribution 13.9% from 2019 to over $1 billion in 2021. As the current agreement expires at the end of the year, the two sides began their first round of talks in Hawaii last month. Yoon said various negotiations and issues can be resolved amicably, adding there is strong support for the bilateral alliance from the US Senate, House, and both Democratic and Republican camps. having emphasized the central role of Seoul's trilateral cooperation with Washington and Tokyo in his video message before the press conference. Yoon also indicated he will continue strengthening relations with Japan despite their historical differences.
우리의 미래를 위해서 또 구체적으로는 북핵 대응을 위해서 또 양국의 경제 협력을 위해서 또 인태지역과 글로벌 사회에서 양국의 어떤 공동 아젠다에 대한 어떤 리더십 확보를 위해서 협력해야 된다고 생각합니다.
Also, when asked about North Korea's illegal arms cooperation with Russia, Yoon said Pyongyang's export of weapons in itself backs the illegal conduct of war in Ukraine, and as it violates United Nations Security Council resolutions, Seoul is taking necessary responses. He acknowledged Seoul and Moscow's ties are in an uneasy situation, adding the two sides should cooperate where they can, but Seoul will oppose or make adjustments based on their different positions. Looking beyond the Korean peninsula and its immediate neighbourhood, President Yoon reflected on the progress made so far on South Korea's goal of becoming a global pivotal state, a responsible contributor to the international community. His office noted that Yoon has held 153 summits with some 97 world leaders since its inauguration, expanding South Korea's ties with countries in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, 3 major Gulf states, and Pacific Island nations. While South Korea looks to broaden its access to overseas markets, the country also aims to contribute to global development efforts, raising its official development assistance budget by 31% compared to last year, to $4.57 billion. The leader is set to host the first ever Korea-Africa Summit next month with some 54 African nations in Seoul, focusing on shared growth, sustainability and solidarity. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
So, more open communication with the public and more affordable livelihoods for his people. Will President Yoon be able to keep his word for the next 3 years? We're joined by Professor Min Jung-un this morning. Welcome back, Professor Min.
Good morning.
So, President Yoon started off his speech by expressing deep regret and making an apology for the tough livelihoods of the people. Professor Min, what's your take on this?
Yes, as you know, regarding the tough livelihood of the people, we need to talk about the situation of the global economy. As you know, the COVID-19 made a huge impact on the global economy by locking down most cities and making lots of people lose their jobs. And in order to relieve people's economic hardships, governments in the world provide the financial aid to their people, like the COVID-19 rescue funds of the United States. In addition, the pandemic made a negative impact on the global supply chains of major products, food, and other items. We can still remember, for example, that the world experienced a shortage of semiconductors, and therefore customers had to wait several months before they could buy a car. And South Korea is another exception. And the people in South Korea are going through economic hardships now. So some people make a joke saying everything has gone up except my salary. So I think what the President Yoon mentioned about the tough livelihood of the people is about the high cost of living and other economic difficulties that the South Korean people are facing. And he said that the South Korean government is making consistent efforts to lower inflation and stabilize the cost of living. And considering that the world is getting out of the economic impact that the pandemic made, South Korean economy is also getting better in the coming years.
Right, that is why the core of his briefing to the nation centered around making people's livelihoods more affordable by taming soaring food prices and the cost of eating out. Now, the question is, how can the Yoon administration actually keep that promise over the next 3 years?
Well, I think the Yoon government is trying to reduce the government spending, lower taxes, facilitate businesses, and create jobs in order to relieve economic hardships for its people. But the South Korean economy is also connected to the global economy, where the interest rates are still high in most countries, and the world is suffering from their unstable global supply chains, mainly caused by the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war and Israel-Hamas war. And as the free and open trade country, South Korea needed to restore reasonable energy prices like oil and natural gas and exchange rates of its currency. But it seems that it will take some more time before these external factors could be more favorable to the South Korean economy. So I expect that the South Korean government is trying to control their influence of the South Korean economy while it maintains the directions of the economic policy.
Professor Min, we also have to talk about the launch of a brand new ministry that will specifically tackle the country's notoriously low birth rate. Now, will this ministry be a game changer in fixing this issue?
Well, the President Yoon mentioned that he would create a low birth response planning ministry to cope with South Korea's serious low birth rate. He said that the launch of a new ministry would be necessary because the low birth rate is a national emergency, and we needed to mobilize all the country's capabilities to get over it. And the head of the ministry will also take the position of the Deputy Prime Minister for Social Affairs and draw up policies across the education, labor, and welfare sectors. And President Yoon also requested the active cooperation of the opposition-controlled National Assembly to revise the government organization for the launch of the new ministry. And creating such a brand new ministry suggests that Yoon government will significantly invest its administrative capabilities to resolve the problem. But we need to see how the initiative will be shaped in the coming months and whether his plan will work in the coming years.
Definitely. All right, Professor Min, thank you so much for joining us this morning. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Some medical professors will be taking their weekly suspension of outpatient treatment on a Friday, amid their ongoing push to halt the government's plans to increase the medical school admissions quota. Now, a Friday suspension comes after medical professors began taking a day off starting on April 30th, citing exhaustion due to the prolonged walkouts by junior doctors. However, as with the previous suspensions, no major disruption to the medical system is expected. Medical professors will continue to provide inpatient treatment and surgery for emergency or critical patients. Meanwhile, the government plans to submit on Friday its supporting data for the increase of the admissions quota as requested by the court and hold its second meeting of the Special Presidential Committee on Medical Reform soon. The Korea Drone Expo is back for its 2024 edition, with the sport of the future, drone soccer, taking center stage. Our Lee Soo-jin went to check it out.
It's a soccer match, but instead of a ball flying through the air, it's multiple drones. This drone soccer match is taking place at the 2024 Korea Drone Expo, a 3-day event that kicked off on Thursday. Attendees here can see how drones are used now, as well as how they might be used in the future, such as drone soccer.
South Korean companies are the only ones that can make drone soccer balls, with carbon materials that meet international standards.
This year's International Drone Soccer Festival, one of the highlights of the Korea Drone Expo, is the largest ever, with more than 400 players from 20 countries taking part. Drone soccer is a new ICT-integrated sport founded in Korea that's now being played across the world. It involves 2 teams where each player has their own drone and a position. And the winner is determined by the team that scores the most goals by maneuvering drones through the opposing team's goal.
It's fun to see which strategy leads to a win. I'm most looking forward to seeing what game strategies the foreign players use.
Really getting to know the team and bonding together in order to come together and make a good play be my favorite part. What I am looking forward to the most. Gain a good experience and of course to play against the other Korean team.
The fast-growing popularity of drone soccer was also reflected in the first session of the Federation of International Drone Soccer Association, where discussions were held about the first ever Drone Soccer World Cup that's scheduled to take place in 2025. But participants from all over the world aren't just here for drone soccer. This year's event also featured a separate section for global drone enterprises from 12 different countries for the first time to provide a glimpse into global drone trends.
With the ongoing drone soccer matches and drone booth displays, attendees from all over the world will continue to witness various applications of drone technology. 이수진, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn to stories from around the world. We begin today in Senegal, where a Boeing 737 skidded off a runway before takeoff and caught on fire on Thursday. At least 10 people were reported injured. According to the Senegalese Transport Ministry, the Air Senegal flight operated by Transair was heading to Bamako in Mali from Senegal's main airport in the capital, Dakar, carrying 79 passengers. The Blaise Diagne International Airport closed immediately following the accident at around 1 a.m. local time, but resumed operations at around 11 a.m. Neither Boeing nor flight operator Transair have commented on the incident yet. This was the third incident involving Boeing planes in the past few days, following 2 incidents in Turkey where no casualties were reported. Moving over to the Vatican, Pope Francis formally proclaimed 2025 a Holy Year, or Jubilee, one of the Roman Catholic Church's most important events. The Holy Year set to begin late this December. Pope Francis asked for gestures of solidarity in a world beset by war, poverty, and hunger. The once-in-a-quarter-century event is expected to bring to Rome next year some 30 million pilgrims seeking forgiveness for their sins. Pope Francis, who will turn 88 in December, will see the start of the Holy Year on Christmas Eve by opening the Basilica's bronze door, symbolizing the doorway of salvation for Catholics. Former U.S. President Donald Trump's youngest son, Barron Trump, has been selected to serve as a Florida delegate to the Republican National Convention. Barron Trump, an 18-year-old high school student, will serve as one of the 41 delegates from Florida to the GOP convention in Milwaukee in July. The delegate list, which was released on Wednesday, included many of Trump's family members, including Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and his fiancée Kimberly Guilfoyle, and Tiffany Trump and her husband Michael Boulos. Pop star Justin Bieber and his wife, model Hailey, announced in a social media post that they're expecting their first child. The Canadian multi-genre singer, who initially garnered fame with the 2010 hit song Baby, and his wife confirmed with media outlets on Thursday that Hailey is just over 6 months pregnant. 30-year-old Justin and 27-year-old Hailey were married in September 2018.
Good morning. Warmer temperatures and plenty of sunshine are in store for today. UV rays will be more intense nationwide, so please put on a good amount of sunblock as sunburns can sneak up on you. Afternoon temperatures will also be 1 to 4 degrees higher this afternoon in most places. Seoul topping out at 24 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Gyeongsangdo provinces and surrounding areas will be much warmer, topping out at 28 degrees in Daegu, Gyeongju at 29. Air quality will be normal nationwide. Now, today's bright weather is set to take a turn with rain this weekend. It sure does rain a lot this season, and it will rain down heavily through early Sunday in most places. Further south, we'll see heavier showers. Jeju and the south coast could see up to 80 millimeters. Central parts of the country could see 5 to 30 millimeters of showers, but most of rain should go away by Sunday morning. Then sunny and warm weather returns next week, with Wednesday marking Buddha's birthday here in Korea. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next Monday at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.